A meeting takes place at the French headquarters currently located in Africa. The French commander warns his team that he has received some important information. The enemy chief named Massillon has arrived at Sector Y for a visit. This means that the French squadron will be able to assassinate the man tonight. For this mission, the chief has recruited 5 squadrons, totaling 49 soldiers. He makes it clear that the soldiers will not have air support. One of the fighters asks how many enemies they will face. The chief replies that between 350 to 500 men. A soldier named Diru tries to understand if his friend agrees with this. Kang Shan tells him to be silent. The soldiers are aware that it is impossible to win with the number of numbers they have. The commander explains that the fighters only need to assassinate Massillon, so the squad must cease fire and retreat immediately when that happens. Diru says something to Chan again, and the commander gets angry. The 2 soldiers are silent. That guy named Kong Chan is our main character. He keeps his gaze steady at the French commander. On an ordinary day this would make the captain angry, but he decides to move on because today is a very special day. After these words, the meeting comes to an end. A few hours later, night comes, and it's time for the French squadron to complete the mission. The protagonist Kong Chan is in the lead. The car carrying the soldiers arrives at the destination. Chan gives 5 minutes for the men to get ready and check their weapons. Meanwhile, he takes the opportunity to smoke a cigarette. A blonde soldier approaches and calls Chan captain. The protagonist faces the soldier making a strange movement with his hand. Apparently the man wanted to celebrate after the end of the mission. Diru joins the conversation and tells Smithen to stop it. Chan also scolds the soldier for thinking nonsense when he should worry about surviving. Smithen calmly says that he has nothing to worry about because he has the god of Blackfield with him. The protagonist laughs and says not to overdo it. 5 minutes later, the squad enters the forest. Walking calmly towards the soldiers in Massillon's camp, they walk slowly without causing any noise. Chan goes ahead and checks if there are any enemies hiding behind the bushes or trees. There are about 2 ken to go to the actual destination and everything seems to be going well for now. But for some reason the protagonist has a bad feeling. Smithen tries to know if the leader is okay. Chan says it's just a bad feeling. Smithen mockingly asks if the god of Blackfield is afraid. He even jokes that it's time for Chan to retire. At that moment the whole squad hears a gunshot. Smithen fell backwards after a bullet pierced his armor. Suddenly a hail of bullets is fired at Chan's squad. The soldiers try to hide behind the trees. In addition to the gunfire, the protagonist's squad also receives grenades. Chan carried Smithen to a tree while the attack continued. He realizes with concern that the enemy are using grenade launchers. It is clear that his squad is not being attacked by some Sinal's professional snipers were waiting for them. The protagonist checks if Diuru is okay. Fortunately, the shots did not hit him. At that moment the enemy soldiers arrive with support and join against the French squad. Chan tries to shoot too. His aim is so good that several soldiers are shot down. The enemy's car starts to catch fire after the last shot. Chan turns his attention to Smithen and asks if he needs morphine. The soldier replies that he doesn't and tries to understand if he suffered a major injury. The protagonist lies saying that he is not bad. In fact, Smithen had his organs damaged. Diuro asks what the protagonist intends to do. Chan wants to retreat immediately to save Smithen. But Smithen says that the captain must do it. So he tells Chan to move on. The man begins to lose consciousness. The protagonist screams asking if Smithen knows who he is. Smithen replies in a low tone of voice that the captain is the god of Blackfield. Suddenly a grenade explodes near them. Chan worries and Diuro says he wasn't hurt much. The protagonist then asks the man to hold out a little longer. He promises to finish off the enemies. Chan comes out of hiding and shoots the target. But at that moment a bullet is fired from behind. The protagonist falls to the ground and his vision quickly darkens. He wonders if he was shot in the back. Clearly some traitor gave his location. Chan complains that his head is hurting. But he remembers that he should have passed away and asks why he still feels pain. Suddenly the protagonist screams that he is thirsty and some voices ask him to react if he can hear. His eyes slowly open and a doctor asks him how he feels. Without hearing answers, the doctor asks Nurse Kim to check the vital signs. The protagonist takes a while to understand the place and the language they are speaking to him. The doctor shouts that the patient Kane-chan has woken up. Meanwhile, the Special Forces captain has difficulty understanding what is happening, but he realizes that the doctor in front of him is Asian. Chan didn't used to see Asian because he worked in a French squad. He asks where he is. The doctor replies that this is the Sibeo Hospital in Gangnam. Nurse Kim is ordered to call the patient's companion. Chan tries to understand how he ended up in Korea. The doctor says that he ended up there after they called 119. The protagonist is surprised because there is no such emergency number in Africa. The doctor comes to the conclusion that the patient is confused because he has been unconscious for 3 days. Chan jumps out of bed when he hears that he has been unconscious for 3 days. He runs wondering how he looks. But the protagonist does not recognize the person reflected in the mirror. A few days later, a car travels along the central road of Gangnam. The protagonist was discharged and released to return home. In the time he was hospitalized, he received some information. Before he was Kong Chan, a 29-year-old team instructor and captain of the French mercenary forces, but lost consciousness after being shot during a mission in the African battle. Then he regained consciousness in 2019 in South Korea. Now he is in the body of a boy also named 19-year-old Kong Chan. The original owner of the body jumped from the roof of the school where he studied and was unconscious for 3 days. People think the teenager woke up, but in fact the protagonist who took over the body. He believes that the boy passed away in the fall. The woman sitting next to Chan is the mother of the original body owner. Her name is Hai Suk. She received the information that her son forgot what happened in the past because of the accident. The father of the body owner is Kong Dae Jaeon. He tells his son that he is confident that his memories will come back as the days go by. The father parks the car in a luxurious building. They enter the house and the mother gently asks if Chan remembers the place. The father interrupts the conversation and tells his son to go rest. The protagonist obeys. Kong shows him his room and Chan enters. Then the man tells his wife that it is better not to fill the boy with questions. Meanwhile, Chan is impressed with the room of the real owner of the body. He says that it is much better than the commander's personal room. It seems that the original owner came from a rich family. The computer soon catches Chan's attention, but he sees that he needs a password to access it. So his attention falls on the cell phone and he decides to use the device's internet for a search. But it also has a password. The protagonist wonders what the owner of the body hides so much to put a password on everything. Fortunately, the cell phone has a fingerprint reader and he manages to unlock. So Chan researches about the 2016 battle that took place in Africa. Maybe this way he can find some clues about his murder and reincarnation. In fact, the search did not result in anything. Chan searches in French and also finds nothing related to the conflict. He wonders if he should look in the French articles. At that moment, a text message arrives on his cell phone. A guy named Lee Hajin asks if he has been discharged. Chan assumes that Hajin is friends with the owner of the body and confirms that he is already home. Suddenly the guy starts calling the protagonist crazy and asks if he really doesn't want to live. Chan is scared and decides to ignore it because he thinks that boy is not friends with the owner of the body. But Hajin sends one more message. He asks how Chan dares to ignore him. The messages keep coming. The protagonist just replies that he is busy. Hajin gets angry and calls him. The protagonist answers and laughs. On the other end of the line, the bully is bothered by the laughter and asks if he was brave after he left the hospital. Chan soon hangs up the call, then goes to the contacts and blocks Hajin. He definitely doesn't want to be bothered. The scene changes to a high school. A guy yells that he will finish that brat and then throws the cell phone on the ground. The other bullies ask why he broke the cell phone he bought 2 months ago. Hajin replies that Chan will buy him another cell phone when he returns to school. The bully is happy with the possibility of beating the boy. Later night comes and the protagonist continues to sit in front of the computer. He spent the day checking all the articles, including those specializing in military news, but he did not find any information about the conflict in Africa. He wonders if there is any reason for the battle to have been kept secret. The protagonist decides to smoke after so much thinking. He looks for cigarettes in the room but doesn't find it and curses the original owner of damn nerd. The protagonist is sure that the boy has cigarettes hidden somewhere in this room, so he looks in the most likely places to hide. Suddenly Chan ends up finding a diary, where the original owner of the body wrote that he was being bullied at school. He gave all the money to the bullies but it was never enough. The protagonist reads all those words. The original owner wrote all the insults he received during the years he studied. Chan soon realizes that Hajin is one of the annoying bullies. In the diary, the owner of the body wrote that he wanted to eliminate all those damned. The protagonist laughs, saying that the guy shouldn't think about committing a crime and confess everything in the diary. He lies in bed complaining about today. Unfortunately, he doesn't have any cigarettes in the room to calm his head. Plus now he knows he will be insulted when he leaves the house. The next day arrives. Chan is going to school with his father. Kong asks if his son will be okay. The protagonist replies yes and asks him not to worry. The father says goodbye and Chan gets out of the car. He goes through the stairwell gate wearing his uniform and wonders where his room is. It would be nice if someone came to help him. Suddenly someone yells for Chan. All the students look around. Hajin asks if he wasn't the one who got extra steel balls in the hospital and is now feeling like a brave hero. The protagonist reads the bully's name on the uniform and realizes that it's that guy who bullies the owner of the body. Hojin is about to talk about the conversation they had yesterday on their cell phone when he notices that Chan is laughing. He asks what is so funny. The protagonist replies that he finally found his assistant. Hojin gets annoyed while Chan asks if he got his name right. The bully yells that because of Chan he had to pay for his own lunch and cigarettes. The protagonist is happy hearing this and asks to borrow a cigarette. Hojin holds his fist saying that he was going to wait until halftime, but he is asking for it. So the bully invites the protagonist to join him. The two enter the school's sports court. Hojin tries to punch the protagonist, which obviously goes wrong because Chan still remembers the mercenary training he received. At that moment Chan punches the bully in the face. Hojin falls apparently unconscious. The protagonist thinks for a moment about ending that student's life, but he knows that doing it in the school will bring bad consequences, so the solution he finds is to steal the cigarettes that Hojin said he had. He checks the guy's uniform and finds nothing. Chan starts to leave the court while asking the owner of the body if he is happy with it. The protagonist hopes that now the real Kong-chan can rest wherever he is. Suddenly the bully who was faking fainting gets up. He tries to catch the protagonist from behind by surprise, but it wasn't so quiet. Chan dodges and hits another punch at the bully. Hojin gets up quickly. The protagonist understands that he won't be able to race this guy with just one punch because this body is not as trained as his old body. So the alternative he finds is to hit several punches until Hojin falls unconscious. The bully's nose drips red liquid. After being hit so many times, Chan also hits Hojin's chin. The guy falls to the ground and the protagonist keeps hitting. He stops hitting when he remembers that he still doesn't know what his room is. At that moment the protagonist leaves the sports court and walks outside. He has no idea where his class is. Suddenly a female voice calls for him. A smiling girl says that she is happy that he has returned to school. The protagonist is frozen in place observing the beauty of the girl and mentally says that she looks like Snow White. Then he notices the name Kim Myeon written on her uniform. Chan still doesn't know what Kim's relationship is with the owner of the body and prefers not to say anything absurd. He also wants to avoid trouble since he is in his last year. So he only confirms that he left the hospital some time ago. Kim apologizes for not going to visit him. It turns out that there were some unforeseen events at the tutoring school and she got very busy. The protagonist replies that everything is fine. Suddenly Kim says that everyone in the room is worried about him. Chan asks surprised if they are from the same room. Kim notices the confusion and questions if the protagonist forgot that they are tablemates. She tries to see if the boy has a fever but Chan dodges her hand saying that everything is fine and asks her to show her the way. In a few minutes the two arrive at the class. Chan sits comfortably in his chair while watching the view. At that moment someone arrives in the room calling the attention of all the students. Hajin displays all the injuries he got on that sports court. It even looks like he was run over. The students assume that Hajin fought with the gang of another school as he always does. On the other hand, the protagonist regrets sharing the room with this delinquent. Hajin sits at the table on the other side of Chan but keeps his eyes on him while the protagonist avoids eye contact. Hajin sends a text message to his comrades saying that Chan has gone crazy so they must reunite during the first period. He decides he won't let that brat go unpunished. Later the teacher takes the students outside the room. Everyone changed their uniforms for a more comfortable outfit with the exception of the protagonist. The teacher called his attention. Kim soon defended his tablemates saying that he was hospitalized for a while and came back today. The teacher then apologizes for the way he spoke and leaves the protagonist free to choose which sport he wants to practice. But he asks him to be careful since he has just left the hospital. Chan sits on the stairs while the students play soccer and other sports. He is thinking about what he should do now that he is in this body. Suddenly someone approaches. The protagonist asks what he wants again. Hajin replies that it will not be like this and tells Chan to follow him. The protagonist walks behind the bully while telling himself that he shouldn't have spared him. Hajin takes him to the other delinquents. There are 6 men counting Hajin. The hooligans are satisfied thinking that they will make the protagonist a punching bag. Chan is soon surrounded and says that the men should attack soon because he is lazy. So you want to end it as soon as possible. The bully brown-haired replies that he is enough to finish off Chan, then clenches his fist and moves forward. The protagonist just turns his body and slams his fist into the delinquent's nose. The guy is thrown back while splashing red liquid from the wound. The 5 hooligans are shocked by the scene. The protagonist advises the 5 to attack at once. He even helps by saying that to have an advantage it is better for each one to aim at points such as the head, body, and legs. The delinquents do not like to be underestimated and accuse the protagonist of having too much confidence. The group divides and attacks, but even if they are in greater numbers, the protagonist still ends up with them. The bullies stand on the ground screaming in pain. That first delinquent who was hit gets up. He pulls the protagonist by the hair and closes his hand to land a punch. Chan holds the opponent's arm and puts his body over his shoulder, then throws the boy to the ground. The protagonist gets mad that this body is not strong enough. In the past, one punch was enough to defeat the enemy. At that moment, Hajin stood up and seems terrified of the brat who knocked everyone down. One of the delinquents uses a dagger to threaten the protagonist. He just looks at the coward. Suddenly the guy tries to attack and is immobilized. In seconds his arm is broken. After that, Chan turns his attention to Hajin. The guy starts to despair. The protagonist picks up the dagger that fell to the ground and says that this is all his fault. If he had eliminated the bully from the beginning, things wouldn't have gotten that far. Now the protagonist asks if he should use this dagger or break Hajin's bones with his hands. The bully loses all confidence and begs Chan not to do anything. He says he is sorry for everything he did. Suddenly they hear some footsteps. The teacher interrupts the duel. Chan is surprised because he could not detect the presence of the teacher. The man only warns that the protagonist should not exceed the limit of self-defense. Chan looks furiously. The professor scolds him for this and says that he will be expelled if he continues. The protagonist replies that he doesn't care because he doesn't intend to go to college. The professor questions what he wants to do with his life if he doesn't go to college. The man turns his back before the protagonist answers and says he will solve it. Then he should go home. The teacher also asks him to hand over all the evidence that proved that he was bullied. For a moment Chan has the feeling that that man is someone he can't handle alone. So he decides to leave. Suddenly the teacher asks where he learned to fight. The protagonist lies, saying that he saw some videos on the internet. The man says he knows it's a lie and wants to talk about it later. Chan just turns his back and leaves. The teacher didn't expect Chan to change so much after that incident. Later the protagonist left school and walked through the city center. He wanted to change his style a little and went to the salon. Chan got the same haircut as his previous life. After that the boy decided to eat a common Korean dish and went to the first restaurant he saw. He soon ordered a tonkatsu. His order was a bit nostalgic. In the past the protagonist ordered exactly that dish before traveling to Paris and doing that mission. At that moment the waitress serves the dish. The protagonist tries it and doesn't find it as good as it used to. Suddenly his phone rings. On the other end of the line the mother asks worriedly what happened today. Chan tries to explain that everything is fine and adds that he will talk about the details when he gets home. Suk apologizes to his son for filling him with questions and says he will pick him up. But the protagonist gets angry and yells that he will tell what happened when he gets home. After that he hangs up. Chan apologizes to the real owner of the body for acting like that with his mother. He's sure the boy wouldn't talk that way. But he thinks his action is still better than jumping off the roof of the school. Meanwhile at the family home from Chan, the father is very angry at the way his son treated his own mother. Suk tries to justify Chan's attitude by saying that maybe he has a reason to act like that. Kang replies that the brat changed after that incident. Suddenly the door opens and the protagonist enters. He doesn't talk to his parents and goes straight to the room. Kang gets angry and gets up to scold his son. But Chan walks back to the living room with 2 notebooks in his hand. They are the diaries of the real owner of the body. He asks his parents to read it. Suk and Kang are terrified when they read the details of what happened in their son's daily life. They return the notebooks to the table with teary eyes. The father asks if it is true and Chan answers affirmatively. Kang yells that he does not understand why he did not say anything before. The protagonist replies that he felt ashamed and also did not want to worry his parents. He adds that this was the motivation for jumping. Kang asks if his son made this decision. After facing the delinquents and Chan replies that he did. The mother is relieved that the protagonist is not injured, although his hands have some bruises. A silence over the room. Kang makes the decision to take matters into his own hands, but asks his son to talk to him if something like this happens again. Suk agrees with her husband and apologizes for not realizing that he suffered at school. That scene of the parents crying brings back some memories of the protagonist's past life. His real parents were chaotic. His mother was a good person. But the father was a crazy drunk who beat him almost every day. In this life, the protagonist decides to treat his new parents in a different way. He agrees to tell him anything that happens from now on. At that moment, Kong receives a call from work. He says he will transfer the money and hangs up. Suk asks what happened. Kong says that the French correspondent reported a problem he is facing at customs because a document is missing. The local negotiators asked for $100,000 to find a solution. The protagonist was shocked by the amount of money, which is approximately 140 million won. Kong is thinking of sending this money so as not to have problems with customs, but Chan asks his father to let him sort it out. Kong agrees and lets his son talk on the phone. On the other end of the line, the French correspondent states that the local negotiators only gave 30 minutes for the deposit. Otherwise, everything will be discarded. Chan tells the man to pass the phone to the manager. The correspondent asks where Kong is. The protagonist replies that he is his son and asks again to speak to the manager. The correspondent asks for a moment. Chan's parents wonder what he is going to do. At that moment, the French businessman arrives to talk to the protagonist. Chan speaks in French with the man, surprising his family who had no idea he spoke French. Chan talks to the manager for a while. A short time later, he tells his father that everything is resolved. The negotiators found the document that was lost, and thanks to this there will be no problems in crossing customs. Kong is surprised because he already knew that men lie to make money, but he didn't think they would let the products in without paying any taxes. The protagonist replied that from now on his father will no longer be charged. He says that he threatened to destroy the entire place where the negotiators work if something like this happened again. Kong is shocked, but he says it's just a joke. His mother tries to understand where he learned French. Chan lies saying that it was on the internet and Suk ends up believing him. After that, he goes back to his room. The protagonist lies in bed thinking that he will have to postpone his trip to France. At first he thought it would take him a while to leave because his body was not ready yet. But now he feels that he cannot leave his parents. This thought is not something that happens often. So the protagonist tells himself not to think about things unnecessary, because he will leave as soon as he is completely cured. The next day, the protagonist already feels tired of staying at school and leans his head on the table trying to take a nap. Hojin approaches and asks the boy to follow him again. The protagonist asks if the guy doesn't get tired of failing. The bully promises he'll hit him today. Chan just lowers his head. Then Hojin says that he doesn't need to leave here if he doesn't care about Kim Myung. The protagonist can't let that threat go unnoticed. The bully imagined that he had gotten what he wanted. Until Chan asks who Kim is, Hojin yells that the girl went to the roof of the school when she heard that Chan would be there. But now he is acting like he doesn't know her because he is afraid. After this information, the protagonist remembers that Myung is his tablemate. He gets up so fast that he drops his chair on the floor. Without thinking twice, the protagonist goes to the school terrace. Some students are upstairs. Chan expected to meet yesterday's delinquents, but he doesn't understand why there are also girls here. A blonde girl notices his presence and offers to do inappropriate things. Chan just warns the girls to get out of this place. The girl gets angry and screams, questioning who he thinks he is. The protagonist hits her in the face. Then he tells her to go down again. The girl looks scared at the group of delinquents. Hojin says he will solve this and tells her to come down. The girl demands that they destroy this brat. Meanwhile, the protagonist wonders where Kim Myung is. At that moment in the third-year class, Kim finally arrives and is greeted by a friend who immediately asks where she was. Kim replies that she was late because she missed the bus. She asks if anyone looked for her. The friend just looks at the ceiling. Kim follows her gaze. At that moment, the protagonist realizes that he has been deceived. Hojin mockingly asks if he thought he was going to act like a prince who saved Snow White. Chan agrees that the girl looks like Snow White. He decides to leave since she is not here. When he walks towards the door, he is surrounded by 4 men holding a stick with nails at the end. Hojin asks if he is thinking of jumping again. Those words bring a not pleasant memory to the protagonist, and he realizes that it was Hojin who was responsible for that accident. The bully asks if he lost his memory and says that Chan was not forced to jump but made this decision on his own. The protagonist begins to be consumed by anger and hatred. Hojin notices the tension in the air and says that the boy should not think that this time he will get away with it. A man in a sweatshirt is the first to confront the protagonist and he touches his hair to intimidate. Chan just breaks the man's hand and slaps his knee in his face. Hojin yells for everyone to attack at the same time. Then the men with a stick run to the protagonist. It doesn't take long for them to be treated. Some are punched in the stomach while others are hit precisely in the face. The floor gets dirty with that red liquid that is splashed by the bullies. One of the cowards uses a dagger to sneak up from behind and secure an advantage. Fortunately, the protagonist notices in time and breaks the attacker's finger. The sound of the bone breaking is heard by everyone in that place and the guy starts screaming in pain. Again, Hojin is the only one standing. The protagonist says that the guy didn't learn anything in the last meeting, then promises that this time he will finish him. Hojin starts shaking and screams for the teacher. Chan looks around without understanding anything and sees that same teacher who broke up the first fight. He doesn't understand what this man is doing here, but he feels that he is no ordinary teacher. The teacher tells Hojin to get these delinquents out of here and adds that he will take care of him later. The injured bullies start to come out of the terrace. The professor lights his cigarette while saying that Chan didn't wait even a day to do it again. The protagonist questions how the man I knew they would be here. The answer is simple. Kim looked for him and asked for help. The professor says again that this situation is bad, but he uses an expression used only by a member of the protagonist's squad. So at that moment Chan has the feeling that the professor is Diro and also reincarnated in someone else's body. The way the man said that the situation was bad was completely similar to that of the soldier of the French squadron. The protagonist decides to prove it and says the word hi in another language. The man responds in the same language. The next moment Chan starts a fight. The two exchange a few punches during the duel, but neither of them is hit. The fight continues for a few minutes and the teacher wonders how an ordinary high school student can fight like that, so he tries to know who the protagonist is. Chan returns the question questioning who the teacher thinks he is. The two look at each other and the protagonist screams asking who he is. Those words bring back good memories for the teacher. In the next moment the two shout together that the protagonist is the god of Blackfield. The scene changes to a few minutes later. The two French soldiers seem to have calmed down. The protagonist asks Diru why his Korean is so good. The man replies that he has no idea. In the past when Chan was murdered, he was also eliminated soon after. That's all Diru remembers. Then he woke up in bed with a woman and the Korean language flowed naturally as if he had been born there. The protagonist says he understands and asks for a cigarette. But Diru says he can't smoke at school. Chan gets annoyed that the soldier doesn't obey his orders. Diru yelled at his former captain that it doesn't make sense to give something like that to the student. The protagonist questions if he will continue to treat him like this. Diru says yes, because no matter how old his mentality is, in the end he is still in the body of a child. Chan gets angry because he can't argue. The protagonist looks back at everything that has happened so far. The soldier Diru took over the body of Professor Suk Kong Ho. It seems that the reincarnation of Chan and Diru happened at the same time. The protagonist asks if the man liked waking up in the arms of a woman while he woke up in the hospital. Diru confesses that his reincarnation seemed much better. Chan was thinking of starting a new duel when he was scolded by the soldier. Diru remembers that he is now a teacher, while the captain is nothing more than a student, so he must keep his voice low so that no one notices that they know each other from past lives. In addition, Diru questions why the protagonist is causing so much. He should act peacefully now that he has reincarnated. Chan replies that he is only defending himself and does not intend to stay here for long. His goal is to return to France. Diru screams in surprise and asks if he will return to that hell. The protagonist replies that of course. After all, there was a traitor among them. Chan wants to find the person responsible for this, so that the members of the squad can rest in peace. Diru says he wants to participate too and suggests that they do it on vacation. The protagonist asks if it's a joke, but the man says he's serious. Chan just asks his friend to deal with those brats so that he can have some peace in this school. The soldier says he is finishing the preparations. The protagonist asks if the guy was afraid after he reincarnated. Diru asks if he didn't notice anything different when he fought the delinquents on the terrace. Chan replies that those bullies didn't carry any weapons. The soldier gets angry asking if the captain thinks it's normal for a student to carry daggers and sticks with nails. The protagonist hadn't even realized that it was illegal at school. Diru says that there is a criminal organization that supports these students. He intends to deliver all the evidence to the school's superiors, so they can travel to France on vacation. The protagonist smiles and asks Diru to speak well of him to the infirmary. He decides to talk about the trip to France afterwards.